Welcome back. Hope things are going okay. And I have another exciting book for you today. It's actually a very small one. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I'm hoping that you're enjoying these. I'm hoping to get some math ones going very soon. The math books take a little longer to produce because there's just so much information in them, and sometimes it takes you off on these little tangents to figure out their problems and their works. And so it takes a little bit of time to figure those out, but they're coming, and I'm hoping that you enjoy the rest of the videos that I have for you. So let's get started. So today's book of review or book is a very old one. And what I mean by an old one is that think back in the Roman days. So the Roman days, kind of the turn of the century. So like the year one. This is kind of from BC, before Christ, in 80, right? And there was no year zero. So year one was kind of like the start of a new time frame for everybody. And things were changing back then. Politics was changing. Information was coming across differently. Books were getting burned, by the way. If you're talking about Alexandria and the Greeks, when the Romans took over, they burned a lot of books from Alexandria, and it caused a lot of commotion, stuff like that from them. And that's another big old concept that we can talk about one day. And so the book is called, Seneca, On the Shortness of Life. Life is long if you know how to use it. And this is by Great Books. It's not a very big book. How many pages is it? It's about 100 pages or so. And, Seneca, if you don't know anything about Seneca, his first name, it was a little bit more than that, but they call him Seneca, is that he was a Roman, he was born in the Roman times, he was born 5 BC to 65 AD, so almost a turn of the century. And he was a Roman philosopher and statesman, and he teaches a lot of self-control and fortitude to people. And he was an advisor to the emperor back then. Remember, when we're talking about emperors and princes and stuff like that, that's how power was and money got switched around a little bit. Different monarchs, and it comes from families. And so a lot of stories on that. And Seneca talked a lot about philosophy. Philosophy is kind of like the way of life. Not of all life, but kind of how we live life to the fullest. And there's not that much of this book. And this book was actually introduced in 1997, but they're telling the story of Seneca. A lot of things that were written down back then of his information, where a lot of it was translated, from different cultures and stuff like that, and were found. And if you know the story about Alexandria, a famous library, and a famous library, that it was burnt down because there was a different politics and different religions. They didn't like the old testimonies and stuff like that, so they would go in and they would burn the libraries and stuff like that, and all the books and the written information kind of got destroyed. But this survived throughout that century. And so let's talk about this book a little bit, and I have things I want to talk to you. So if you don't know who Seneca looks like, it looks like this gentleman. This is an artist rendition. We don't know if this is actually him, but this is somebody that sketched out of stone or clay, and this is what it's found. I researched this off a couple websites, and make sure there's solid websites for us to make sure we get the glimpse. So anyway, he kind of points out that life is long if you know how to use it, and art is long. So it's not that we have a short time to live, but we waste a lot of it. And life is actually long enough, and sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievement that we're all well invested. So I know that whoever you are, when I'm speaking to you and I'm going over this book, and there's things that I agree with, and there's things that I don't agree with. That's why this is a review. And I think that we go through life, we do waste a lot of time. especially today. And it might be like, well, that's not true. It might not be true for you, but think about how much time you maybe waste on platforms that you think that you should do stuff. People don't always accomplish goals because they get distracted easy. And one of it is like, you're on TikTok, and you'd be amazed once you're on TikTok. Think of the time you spend on it. I know it might be like relaxing time, you're kind of putting yourself at ease, but sometimes you can waste your life on that. I play video games, and I haven't for a while, but it's amazing that when you play video games, it's like, oh my God, it's like 2 hours, 3 hours has passed. And it's like, oh my God, I just played this one part of this video game. And yes, it makes your mind more creative, or your hands a little bit more motion orientated and stuff like that. There's been stories about that. And it's crazy is that we doze off, and you waste a lot of time. And I do agree that we do waste a lot of time. And we have these social media platforms that take a lot of our time away, and we don't know how to manage that, and we get kind of delayed. So it's just, we don't achieve what we come out to do. And I think life is a little bit harder than that. Life is long if you know how to use it. And he was talking about that. Your life, we get the average lifespan is about 77 years old. That's what people live these days. That's the average. Some people live a lot longer, but average is taken the lowest to the highest. We're not talking about the median age. Medium age, probably 77 or something like that. I don't know. I have to look at the results, but the data shows that 77 is the age that people begin to die. And a lot of it is like we focus much on greed and uselessness, and we complain about money because we don't have enough money. And I know that politics runs its course and stuff like that, but think of it that way. We do a lot of complaining and a lot of blaming people for life's adventures, or life's choices, life's how you want to call it. And sometimes we spend a lot of time on that, and it wastes a lot of our energy and time. And he says that that's stuff that you can't always manage. You gotta have to let time and trickle down. And the scariest thing is time and energy. Sometimes we don't have a lot of time on our hands, and you can't get time back. You can get the energy back in a way, and you can get money, but you can't get the time that you spent on it, and that's really hard, and that's very scary. So you have to appreciate the small stuff, the small things. So you can appreciate your parents, your family, your friends, your teachers, your roommates, whoever they are. Appreciate your pets too. Appreciate those people, what you have in place, because that's all going to be, I don't want to say it, it's going to be gone. And we don't always appreciate things until it's gone. So you kind of want to focus on yourself always, but if you focus too much on yourself, you're going to distort yourself in a way that makes you not recognize that stuff. And then you're going to do things that maybe prioritize your time in a way of not living a full and focused life. And maybe that's just what you choose in life. And so he says in his book, he says the greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon us tomorrow and loses today. I think we kind of live immediately. We want things now, and it takes time to get that. And sometimes, depends on how you live your life, those things can kind of see outreached, very far away, and that you have no way of getting it. So you distract yourself to not get to there. I don't know if that's what he's saying here, but life is kind of divided into these three periods: past, present, and future. I mean, that's what our lives are, right? And he says in the book, he says, present is short, future is doubtful, past is certain. So past has already been done. You can't change that. Present, when you're in the present, it's very temporary. It's very quick. But the future is doubtful because what you do now is it going to affect tomorrow or affect a week? You don't know. And so you kind of make like an educated guess, or you try. And you try to make your life full to that extent to reach that doubtful future or something like that, if you want to call it that. When we are, so he says in our book, he says, we are in the habit of saying that it's not in our power to choose the parents who we were allotted to us, that they were given to us by chance. On that 3 time frame, past, present, and future, is that we complain about our parents or upbringing. That, oh, that affects me for not living a long life. Life's too short to even, life's too short to think about that thing. Or life's too short to, oh, I had poor parents or something like that. I'm going to live a short life because I wasn't given the certain characteristics in life or something like that, or opportunities in life. And he says in the book is that don't think of that, because you can't change that. That was a choice. That was a chance that, hey, you know what? Those are your parents. But don't complain about it, because it just wastes a lot of time and energy, and you're going to realize that it took many years for you to get over that, or maybe work through that. And now you're in your teens or 20s, 30s, and 40s, and you're still having those negative thoughts. So he kind of goes into when we retire, and you're enjoying your peace of mind, you will keep yourself busy and important, and the activities that you perform in your life will actually seem very less. Because I think what he's trying to say here is that when you retire, you're supposed to be relaxed, at ease, and living out the rest of your life. Technically, you are really going to be bored, because what happened is that you didn't do so much down here, or maybe you did too much, and now you're retired, and now you kind of reached to the end. It says, well, I have nothing else to do. And so this is what happens in our society. Sometimes we retire too soon, and we get bored so fast that we want to find something else to do, because being bored is like an insult to yourself. I picked it up somewhere. I forgot who said that. But being bored is an insult to yourself. When you retire, you get bored so fast. And sometimes you don't, but it depends on the job you do. It depends on the mindset. But after a while, I think your mind gets bored. I really think that is. I'm not retired, believe me. I know some people that retire very young, and now they're like, well, here comes a month, 6 months, a year down the line, I need to find something else to do. So it's really interesting. If such people want to know how short their lives are, let them reflect on a small portion of their own. And that's very interesting, of their own. So some try to adjust for this, and because they're getting older, and they want to rise to new hopes when they get older. Maybe their life as a younger didn't have that much going, and they're realizing that now. Old age is sometimes a hardship, and you get old, your bones start to deteriorate a little bit, your muscles start to go down, your mind starts to get kind of worn down, and it's old age is really could be an enjoyment, but it's also a problem for some people, because they get older, and what happens, they kind of have a midlife crisis. They think that, oh, I should have done those things, and now I regret it. Maybe because of opportunity, maybe because it was socioeconomic status, maybe it was just because you just didn't put the time into it. You did things off that, and you wasted time. And so I think that's what we're showing, is that life is short. Life is long if you know how to use it. So in your teen or 20 years, if you were always progressing and trying new things and opening those doors of opportunity and really working at it, when you get to your 60s and stuff like that, you wouldn't have maybe that midlife crisis, because you wouldn't kind of regret what you did you wouldn't regret what you did in your past. I really think that's what he's trying to say in here a little bit. And he has a chapter on tranquility of the mind. It's fixed on itself. There's no external interest. Nothing seeks approval. Nobody is seeking approval from you. The mind is at ease, and you have confidence in yourself. And I think that's what what he's trying to say in this chapter is that once you hit that retirement age and you're seasoned, old, you want to call it old, you're at ease, and there's nobody else to judge you because you're retired. But you kind of think back, well, what am I missing? And that's really hard. So I have something to read to you that I found interesting in the book. And sometimes when you read, you want to kind of write this, reread your notes and stuff like that. And it's really interesting is that you kind of have to go back and read what they're saying in Seneca's times. So here we go. I'm going to read this to you. So, and sorry about maybe the gender neutral things in here, because back then it was mostly men, and I understand that could be a problem, but a lot of it was mostly men back there. Women had little or no interactions and things. So I can't change that. Sorry. So I'm just going to read what they have here. Don't get offended, please. The men who teaches the young, who installs virtues into their minds, as we have great shortage of good teachers, who grips and restrains those who are refreshing madly after wealth and luxury, and if nothing more, at least delays them. So sometimes money gets in the way. Sometimes if you retire and you have so much money, it's like, okay, I can go do all this. But sometimes you waste a lot of it. And that's kind of what happens to people is that when you retire, you have all this money. And it's like, well, now you can't take it to the grave. There's no such thing as the richest man in the graveyard. Because when you die, all your money and all your possessions go away. And it's what you did in life to make you who you are. And I think that's kind of what he's trying to say is that, it's the people that you get to know and what you get to try in your life, and money just is there. Yeah, money opens doors, I guess, but it's how you deal with it. Money is just an exchange of currency. It's an exchange of services. If you think about it, that's what money is. Another thing here I want you to understand is that in the book, it says, for if you compare all other things from which we suffer, death, illness, fears, desires, endurance of pain and toils, with the evils which money brings us, the later will fare outweigh the others. So like I was saying, is that you can't be the richest person in the graveyard. There's no such thing. You can't take that money, but it's what you do and with your possessions that makes you who you are. And very interesting information there. I really think that back then they realized that the same thing happens today. Yeah, our politics and stuff is kind of a little different. People's maybe more entitled. I don't know. We have technology, advancements in technology. That's changing, but you're always going to be a person. Your brain doesn't really change. You're still going to have a 3-pound brain. It depends on how you think for yourself and what you plug into this thing. And so it goes back to, we must be especially, he says in this, we must be especially careful to choosing people and deciding whether they are worth devoting a part of our lives to them. Whether they sacrifice our time makes a difference to them. Now, that might sound very negative. He says that, we have to be very careful how we kind of spend our time with. And if you think like marriages or friendships or just, relationships, marriage and stuff like that, I don't like that, how he says that, because everybody has a different life, or they have a different way of looking at life, and they had different experiences and different opportunities, which we all can grow. And yeah, I guess maybe spending time with one person for many years and then all of a sudden they stab you in the back, that I can see. But, a real friend is there for you in the time of need. And a real relationship will work if you both put the equal amount of balance into it. And sometimes when one person doesn't balance out the equation, the whole thing falls apart. And you can spend 20 years with a person and you can be married and then all of a sudden you get a divorce because of one other thing, and you'd be like, well, I spent 20 years with that person and you can't get that time back. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just things come up and it's just a matter of working, and there's really no excuse for it. So I don't always agree with what he's saying, but when you find that person, be glad that you are spending time with them. But nothing delights the mind so much than fond and loyal, but in loyal friendship. Love is going to be there. Being loyal to a person is good. Spending time with that person, get to know that person's interest, and being humorous with the person really helps know that person really well. And maybe that person will change someday. I don't know. But people are social human beings. We need comfort, we need love, we need friendship, we need guidance. And sometimes when we are alone or we have another epiphany or we have something else going in our heads, sometimes we can go down the wrong road. And sometimes that could be for the good. But it's this, you have to share things with them. You have to sacrifice sometimes. You have to sacrifice some of your things in life. And that's okay. To have a marriage work, you make some sacrifices sometimes, but you also have to balance out the equation of both interests. And you got to like both interests. And you got to create that connection. So we have to have some sort of captivity bounded by. So in life, we have high office people. We have wealth. Sometimes you're born into a wealthy family. Maybe the origins of the family come up, the family culture, not the family culture, but the family traditions or something like that. Maybe you're under rule, like in the British, in England, they have kings and queens. They're born in that family, and you have to kind of understand their circumstances. But sometimes you can break those circumstances. Says, hey, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I want to break this. I want to live a little free, and that's perfectly okay. So that's how you're living your life. And it's interesting that you want to be kind of away from the crowd a little bit and gain, but you still need that crowd. You can have solitude. You can be alone. You can enjoy life to its fullest or not, but you still need a balance of being in a crowd. You don't want to be in the crowd so much because you want a balance to be outside of it too. So he was making this distinction is that you have solitude and you have joining a crowd. That's what he says in the book. So you need people and you're alone. But they are both interchanged. We need people. But we also need to be alone to think and do our own thing. And that's okay. So life's a balance. As long as you're balanced that equation 100%, you're fine. It's like light and dark, the yin and the yang. So politics is just politics. You can't do too much with that, but everybody needs a day off. And so, for example, he was talking about in the book. He says life has its balances. Think of politics. Ugh, right? But they go into a session and then they take some time off. Sometimes too much time off. You think about it. And then you have people that work, like laborers, and then they take a day off. Oh, I have a day off on Monday because I want to go and spend my birthday, or I have a family thing. You take a day off because you're finding balance into your job. Maybe you have, maybe the military, for example. Think of the military. Armies sometimes don't fight a certain day because they want to take breaks. Or maybe they switch out and say, you know what, you're on watch tonight while I go enjoy myself. That's always that balance of taking some time for yourself. so you can rethink and reevaluate. And it really makes the mind at ease when you take some time off. Aristotle, this was probably about, Aristotle lived about 300 BC, so this is before. And he says that no intellect has been without a touch of madness. You can be as smart as your person you want, but there's still some sort of madness that goes on in your brain, and that's okay. Everybody gets angry. It's okay to show angry, but remember who you're being angry at. And sometimes that takes a long tour on long effect on somebody. So in the end, it's a fantastic book, and some of it gets kind of wordy and kind of not really. You have to understand the wording a little bit, but in the reality, it's a really interesting book. And I think the couple of the sentences in the book, the first sentences is that life is long, art is long. It's not that we have a short time to live, but we waste a lot of it. And that's really the first paragraph of this book that kind of points out that, you know what, he might be right or he might not. Interesting book. Like I said, this is at Barnes & Nobles or online. It's actually on the front list of things. I think they brought this out for people to read. Very interesting. So I think it kind of came up. So interesting read. I think that get this book. It's not that much. It was like $12. Might be on sale. But hopefully that helped. And let's continue.